get your mind in a place of next steps, and it'll become a habit. So when you're working at a company and you're trying to get a promotion, it'll be a habit to be like, oh, the person never asked me to do this, but I went out of my way to do this. And if you can explain that in a job interview or on your resume that you didn't do the tasks at hand, you did something above and beyond. That's what's going to translate to employers, and that's what they want a piece of.
Before we dive in today's episode, I have some exciting news I need to share. If you're a business owner or professional or entrepreneur looking to skyrocket your growth through podcast creation, video production, or public relations support, we've got you covered. Connect with our team at Growth Stack Media. We're here to help you grow faster and more affordably. Visit growthstackmedia.com today to book a free consultation or reach out through our contact details in the show description. We can't wait to help you make your business even more badass. Welcome to a brand new episode of Badasses in Tech. I'm so happy to be joined today by Jasmin Scalli. Jasmin considers herself to be a true jazz of all trades. How fun is that? Being in her late 20s, she has taken several roles across 10 industries in the human resources space. As an only child at the age of 18, young age of 18, she moved all the way across the country and never looked back, and attributed that experience to her strength and resilience that she has today. Right now, she teaches others all about the space of HR, and she has a really awesome Instagram page dedicated to career advice and inspiration. That is how Jasmin and I met. Jasmin, welcome. So happy to have you today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to dive more into your podcast and provide help to others. And I'm really excited.
Awesome. So why don't we start off the conversation with a little bit about what got you started on this impressive path? What got you in the world of HR?
So funny enough, my initial thought in high school was I wanted to be a teacher. Traditionally speaking, I wanted to be an elementary teacher, work with kids. I love helping others. I was a CNA in high school for a little bit. So helping people grow, whether it was physically in the CNA world or mentally with children, I knew that I wanted to help others grow because I came from a little heavy of a background. When school ended in high school, I decided that I had a bigger personality than that. And so I went into college knowing I wanted to do human resources. From there, I never looked back. Then once I got into college, I realized that I could find pieces of it along the way and integrate non-traditional HR courses, but find it through adding in extracurriculars. So, for example, I was a global ambassador. So that meant supporting international students and their integration into the U.S. and at our university. Another opportunity that sparked my interest in a different way of finding HR pieces at university was being a career peer advisor. So being chosen to be trained on resume support and hosting career fairs. So I kind of just had all of these things gravitating towards me. And bottom line of it all, I just saw it all coming, kind of like in a manifestation sense, it's in front of you, grab it, see what it can do. And that's how, I got the baseline of my human resources experience.
I love that. And it sounds like throughout your experience, like you said at the beginning, you knew that you had this passion for teaching, this passion for helping others. And even though your career path took a slightly different direction, you still were able to find a career and, like you said, kind of create it on your own in a way that you were able to hold on to that passion. And I think that right off the bat is something that a lot of people struggle with. A lot of people don't really know or feel like, oh, my passion, I really love art, but my family wants me to be a lawyer. So I guess I have to go through this quote unquote traditional, path for success. And they're doing themselves a disservice, right? Because they're leaving their passion at the door. They're throwing their passion away for what they feel like they should be doing because other people are telling them, or that's what society says. So I love that you have been able to create this own path for you while still keeping to your core of helping people and that passion that you have. So I love that.
And that's so funny you say that, because I didn't even think about this. When you're younger, your inner child has these little moments that affect you later on in life, whether it be for the good or bad. And a little thing that you said that kind of triggered that a bit is, I remember when I was going to university and I was telling my family, this is what I want to do. My grandfather was the one who majorly supported all the kids when it came to university time. And he was very like, I will help you guys if you do medical. I will help you do if you're thinking, the more generic STEM jobs
Right.
or university education that there is. And I was just so taken back, because I was like, I get it. You're more old school. Traditionally, human resources was more of a secretary type role. And now it's developed into legal because of employee relations. You got some finance because of payroll and, going through strategy with the CEO and COO. And it wasn't like that for them growing up. So I did have a challenge where I had kind of family not rooting for me to go into this profession because they didn't see the growth, stability, or money in it.
Right. And that probably, made you question and kind of second guess. I come from similar background, similar family dynamics. I was raised by my grandparents, and they only really understood, doctor or lawyer or, some of those just general jobs that we all learn about. And on top of that, sticking to one job for 20 plus years, right? So when you're surrounded by people that you love and you hold their opinions to such high regard, if they're not meshing with what you're envisioning for yourself, it really does throw you for a loop, huh?
Yeah. And I know you mentioned milestones. So that was actually what motivated to me for my first hard milestone.
Oh,
But I
nice.
was excited for the difficulty of it and the challenge, because it was not only proving to myself, but proving to others that I could do this. And that was my move from Massachusetts to the farthest city possible, San Diego, California.
Wow. Are you in San Diego now?
I am. And
Ah,
so
jealous.
how that journey began, it was a week after college. I went ahead, I had less than 2,500 in my bank account, drove the 43 hours with a friend. I didn't have a job lined up. I only knew one person, and they weren't necessarily in San Diego County. And I didn't know what the real world looked like at that time. I was like, I did some stuff in university that could translate to HR, but I don't have that foundational first role. I think a lot of people struggle with this right now is, oh, we have entry level roles, but you need 3 years experience. So my nerves were there, and I was concerned about that in the milestone. But I just was so motivated for a change and to prove people wrong that I was applying. I was using transferable skills in my resume, talking about a course that I had where you pretended you were a consulting company, and how I got all of the quote employees, which were the students that were also participating in class, to set them up for employee benefit, and doing fun stuff like that and translating it to show that, oh, well, I am able to think outside the box and strategically. So do you think that that could count, doing that, even if I don't have the 3 years of traditional experience? So after about a month or two, I got someone who reached out to me. It was a temp agency. And that's how I landed my first job, which was actually a staffing assistant outside of university. And that's kind of where everything started. And I can talk more about it as, we speak, but the tech stuff is really, really where it's at when you start. And, it's going to have a domino effect it can be really scary for people because traditionally there's no stability. They don't have the same benefits because you're hired through them and not the company. You might be nervous because it's only 3 months. Mine was about 3 or 4 months, my first seasonal position. And so taking that risk for some people, they'll stray away and they'll just do maybe a job at a juice bar or something that is irrelevant. But it's the fear that's motivating them in the direction they don't want to go when they feel cornered. And I just knew I will figure it out. I'm going to take this risk and only take a 4-month position because there has to be a way out to where I want to be. And for those who are trying to figure it out, I'd say, something as simple as, say you worked at Starbucks. Was there sometimes you were doing inventory? If you're trying to get a finance job out of school, mention your attention to detail because it's really that transferable skill of attention to detail. And when I had that first job as a staffing assistant, I remember my first kudos moment was I was sitting with these technical recruiters, about 3 of them, and our manager. And I was just their assistant. And they were going through a staffing problem that they've been having for a long time. They didn't know what to do. They're putting the ads out. And, I raised my hand to partake in the meeting. And I told them, hey, everyone, I just wanted to give some insight. I'm new out of college. And I only had my first job a few years back, which was Michael's Crafts. And I thought back to when I had my first job and I used that experience to be in the foot of the entry-level candidate for the positions we were hiring. So just because I didn't have these 10 years, 15 years of experience, you can still have experience that's fresh and new and innovative. It's kind of the perk to being fresh out of school because you can give them something that maybe they're not seeing. And I told them a few years ago, if I was an entry-level position, you just show up to companies. I showed up to Michael's Crafts and I said, hey, I'm looking for a job. They don't even do traditional resumes really or job applications online. It's really like, oh, come in here, let's chat. They see if you're capable and everything. And that's a lot easier for someone who's just trying to get an entry-level role. So what we ended up doing is they let me start this project of a on-site career fair, but it had, the keyboard testing in one section, and then we had the hiring managers, and then we had the HR section. And I helped market it. And we got those entry-level people in because they didn't have to do that traditional, go online, learn the skill, because skills to just applying to things online can be difficult. And so I had that fresh lens, and that is something that I was able to show to my team that, I don't have the experience, but this is what I do have, and this is how I can support you.
What type of advice would you say for these job seekers that are looking to effectively differentiate themselves?
So biggest word I would use for this is being proactive. So how I like to see it is, standing out doesn't always come down to what's on your resume. It doesn't always come out to conversation. It can truly be a story that you're telling or the resume, it could go both ways, or someone you meet. And if you can capture someone with you being proactive, that's someone they want, especially in this lazy girl job era.
Right. I'm so glad you brought that up.
That's what can make you different. I mean, I understand the flexibility of remote work, and this is something new, but also they want to see that you're still going to be proactive. So I personally had to grow up being independent and resourceful. I didn't have a good parental support system. So I suggest whether you were like me and you kind of had to be independent and resourceful from the start, whether you had to do that or did not have to do that, you absolutely should be practicing that now. And the way that you do that will get your mind in a place of next steps, and it'll become a habit. So when you're working at a company and you're trying to get a promotion, it'll be a habit to be like, oh, the person never asked me to do this, but I went out of my way to do this. And if you can explain that in a job interview or on your resume that you didn't do the tasks at hand, you did something above and beyond. That's what's going to translate to employers, and that's what they want a piece of.
What would you say, what's some advice that we can give to others, especially other young women who may have been in our shoes, who, might be feeling like lost or scared, or like they don't really have the support that they need to be the successful person that they know they can be?
Yeah, so like you said, I similarly grew up in an unstable environment, mentally and emotionally. And having that instability can really mess up the way you are, and it distracts focus. And you kind of just are trying to survive day to day at times mentally. And so when I was in high school, I actually graduated with, I'm not kidding you, a 2.1 GPA. I was so friend obsessed and trying to ignore everything else. And I didn't do well in high school at all. I don't remember a lot. And, I just wasn't present. And I was scared to make mistakes because I always felt on my own at the same time. And so even when I left high school the last year, you can't do much with the 2.1 GPA. I didn't get accepted into any state colleges. I actually had to go to New Hampshire, and I got accepted into the university that I ended up going to. But even then, there was a counselor telling me I could only do community college, graduating high school with the 2.1 GPA. And I had another counselor I was working with as well in high school. And they were the ones that were like, try it, write something about yourself, get yourself out there. And he motivated me. I applied for the university I went to, and I got accepted. So for people that, didn't grow up in a stable environment, I will tell you, if you surround yourself and put yourself, when you get that opportunity, around good people and good things, you will thrive.
Hey everyone, hope you're enjoying the episode so far. If you haven't already, why don't you take a second to click follow or subscribe on the platform you're tuning into so that you won't miss a second of Badasses in Tech. Also, if you're really loving what you're hearing today, why don't you drop us a 5-star review or leave us a positive comment, as it really helps the podcast grow and helps us continue doing what we're doing, which is helping people become a badass.
I graduated high school. I graduated university with honors. To go from a 2.1 GPA to then honors, I wasn't distracted by the instability. I had control of my schedule and what I wanted to do. I was partaking in classes that I was interested in and ready to be fierce and be involved, like I said before, with the international student program. I was on the cheerleading team that was competitive. I was a career peer advisor. I was working in the business office. And my last year, I was an intern for a ski resort doing human resources. Not to mention, Enactus, which is another business program. And the people I met in these environments were so excited, me conversing back and forth and feeling safe to express my ideas, and them saying, that's a good idea, or, oh, I want to help support that. Once you put yourself in a place and around these people, you will thrive. And I think how I was able to bridge that, because it can be hard if you're grown up in a really unsafe place, to just snap your fingers and, go to university or go to a different city or do something and just have it happen like that. I realized later on that I planted the seeds and attracted myself to good people prior to high school time. I remember growing up in elementary school, I always gravitated towards people who had healthier parents, and I looked up to them. And I think from having that and knowing what healthy can look like, that can be the change for you. We see it all the time. People like Jay Shetty, this podcast could be an inspiration for someone. And so at a young age, I was able to see what was wrong in my environment and have it motivate me to get out of it and put my best foot forward and, reap in the good that is around me.
I love that. Honestly, so motivating. And I mean, your journey from what you were describing, the high school, GPA to where you are today. I hope you are so proud of yourself, because it took me until probably high school to realize, wait a second, I'm different. I don't know if you had that like epiphany or that moment of like, wait, my friends, they go on winter vacation every winter. I don't do that. They do cruises every summer. I'm working 2 jobs to pay for my first car. So like, something's different. And for a while, I was very insecure about it. It still creeps in as an adult. Like I mentioned, the insecurity of, oh my gosh, I am so different. Like, who do I think I am, even attempting to do some of these things that I know in my gut I'm capable of. But kind of once you have that realization, you can either let the difference or feeling like you're the other person consume you in a bad way, or you can look at it and say, oh, wait, okay, so I am different. This is my superpower, but I'm going to look and be a sponge and learn all that I can about what is healthy dynamic. What are some of the families or some of the parents of my, really good friends? What are their jobs? What are some of the skills that they have? What are some of the routines and the family traditions that they have? Because all of that, as we work, we're still humans at the end of the day. And I talk about this a lot on the podcast of like your emotions, especially if you grew up in an unstable environment, it can be your worst enemy. And you have to figure out how to let some of those emotions guide you and not completely debilitate you. So I just, it sounds like, there are a lot of people out there like us, and I hope we can motivate somebody. That's definitely the goal here. So thank you for sharing that, Jasmin. Thank you. It's been awesome.
And I think, when people say don't compare yourself to others, I actually don't agree with that. If I'm being honest, the way that I got to where my mindset is today, from being a 2.1 GPA and not a stable income growing up with, parental figures and chaos and all the dysfunction and everything, that comparing is what got me to where I am. Don't think of that statement in one form of comparing is bad because you're not, it's kind of like that mentality now of everyone gets a trophy. No, if you compare in a right way, like looking at someone's parents that you want to be like, or even this is the way I've done it growing up is, okay, they have a stable family. They have resources to get them their first job. Well, guess what they don't have? I need to figure out what they don't have, because that's my superpower, like you said. And what those people didn't have is they didn't have this aching inside of you wanting to succeed, because you've been in an environment of what it's like not to succeed. So by what you're not having, it makes you more motivated to get to that. And so they didn't necessarily have that strong of, fight or flight resistance. And they didn't have the, if I don't do this, like, what is my other option? Like, that was my biggest motivator, was the chaos and the comparison of what the good and the bad is. And that edge can be any degree or title, being motivated and just going for it, and it translating, like I said in your previous question, with work and being proactive. I've come up against people with double years experience of me and landed the role before them.
There you go. Now, I like that hot take, because to your point, everyone's like, oh, don't compare. but it's not that bad. It's a lesson. If you put your blinders on, you're only going to stay where you are. There really isn't room to evolve. But if you kind of look outside of yourself and, like we're talking about, take it in as a lesson, and what do they have? What don't I have? What do I want that I don't have that they have? And use the emotion, envy or jealousy. Those emotions are indicators that you want something to change, that you don't like your current reality. You typically are jealous or envious of the person because they have something or they are doing something that you want to be doing. So use that as an indicator to take action, right? And to find what it is that will get you to where you want to be. So I love that hot take, and kudos to you for landing those positions. I feel like you're a walking example of, don't let the years of experience requirement scare you, or don't let that kind of define you from applying to a job. So I love that.
Yeah, because ultimately, say if the position wanted something like 15 years experience, well, Martha Mayhew may have that 15 years, and she just recites the whole job description and what she can do. But did she have, 3 shorter stints of jobs that it shows that she was able to get promoted in a short amount of time? Was she able to show that she only didn't do the job at hand, but she was able to do that above and beyond and get kudos in other ways? Or, some companies have competitions where it's like most creative and innovative idea and work on side projects. Like, would you rather have 15-year Martha Mayhew who can do what she can do, or would you rather have 8 years of experience Jasmin, who flourished in the 8 years and went above and beyond and merely got the experience in that amount of time? Where is she going to be if you grow with her until she's 15 years senior?
So did you have any final thoughts or anything on that point before we hop into our next question?
Just truly, if you can talk the talk about walking the walk, then you can get the job. Because, I'm a prime example of it. Typically speaking, you're not seeing someone getting an HR manager role at 25 when you graduate college, a few years prior. And being able to say, these non-traditional skills through groups or associations at your college, or taking on an extra task in your temporary job. If you can show that you're proactive and thriving, that will translate a lot better than someone with double years experience who's just standardizing every single day what they're doing and just checking the box.
Totally. What would you say are a few other common misconceptions or, mistakes that these job seekers out there may be making when they're looking for, true gainful employment? I know one of them, like we just talked about, might be they're taking that years of experience a little too to heart. What would you say are some other common misconceptions that these job seekers should avoid?
So the biggest one that I like to tell people, there are 2 things. This one is more just a quick tip, is do not use Easy Apply on these job sites. If you are doing that and you think, okay, great, the more jobs I apply to on Easy Apply, then the more jobs I'll get. Well, those jobs are getting other people that think it's easy, and then you're just in a pool of people. And honestly, behind the scenes, being in HR and recruiting for a while now, typically this comes from positions that are hard to fill for companies or that don't have the resource. They're giving their own HR and recruitment team to find someone. So that's kind of a little bit, at times, a red flag, because why can't you pay your recruiter or your HR team to thoughtfully find people? And why are you kind of in this panic state of just getting thousands of resumes? Why is the position too hard? Are you not being lenient enough with the expectations you have for someone filling this role? Are you just looking for a gem and that's all you want and don't want to consider people that maybe are typically outside the box? So don't use Easy Apply. That is probably a big one for me when I'm job searching myself or advising friends.
That is so interesting. And I've always wondered, why some jobs have the Easy Apply feature while others don't. And I never thought about it like that, it's almost like something isn't right. Like it might be their last ditch effort, or the role, they're having a really hard time filling the role, or maybe the job requirements or what they have isn't even attainable. So I love that. I love that that piece of advice, because I know there's a lot of people, including myself. It's like, oh, why wouldn't I just upload my resume and call it a day? I have all these other interviews, and I have some of them are requiring mock projects that take a lot of time. So I could see where, it feels like a smart idea to put your name in those Easy Applies. But your advice is awesome. You're saying, like, almost beware of those.
Yeah. And, every company's different, but, there's a reason they're doing it. And whether that's, just trying to get someone to fill it really quickly, or maybe just, I don't know. I don't advise it, for the reasons I said. And then my other piece of advice that I have is, I think, 10 years ago, people were always aiming for applying to larger companies. And I've had, at this point, maybe 11 positions in the past 8 years or so. And I've done mid companies, smaller companies. I'm at a global company that's much larger right now. And I will let you know that it doesn't matter if you're at a small company or large company. They both can have attributes that the other typically is societally known for. So, for example, larger companies have more resources. I only want to apply to companies that have larger resources because I'll get paid more, or, they'll have succession planning available and I will feel more supported. There's definitely larger companies out there that don't provide this, actually, and smaller companies that do. And so I think, and what says that the most is, when you're on your LinkedIn lately, what companies are laying off people in mass layoffs? It's usually the larger companies. And so I highly suggest, if you are choosing between smaller, mid, and large companies, don't be biased because of what reasons you think going into it. Like I said, more resources, or, your career direction is a little bit more clear, because smaller companies do offer that as well. And highly suggest seeing the bigger picture from researching these companies, going on Glassdoor, seeing the review, because it's not a one size fits all anymore, and you can find the qualities of your perfect fit in either category.
I think, too, something else, it's really on the individual, right? Like, it's up to the individual to know what are you looking for. And that way, if you have an idea of what you're looking for, then it shouldn't matter where you go or what size the company is, because if you find a job that meets 4 out of 5 of your requirements, well, then why wouldn't you go for that over a job that is just at a name that you recognize?
Exactly. And, for younger people that are recently graduated or they're still in during their senior year, if you and I, as recruiters or representatives, went to these jobs fairs, you are going to see lines at these larger companies and the smaller ones not really getting attention. And that's kind of the, not naiveness necessarily, but it just, people are so drawn to larger companies. The larger, the better. Oh, I want this name. And it's like, Well, the booth next door provides a little bit more money, and they have an all hats mentality where you can progress in a different direction about 6 months in, and they have this program and they can be more creative and flexible because that larger company you're standing at, it only has one direction. And although it's very clear and black and white, there's no room for flexibility from there. It's either you have those skills. Whereas the booth that you're not going to potentially is a smaller company that can bring you faster and have people work with you more hands-on because everyone's sharing the work.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I think some of the takeaways that I'm gathering from our conversation today, be proactive. Don't be afraid to put yourself in the ring of a job that may say it requires more experience than what you actually have, because 9 times out of 10, you have the experience that they're looking for. You just have to figure out how to package it together, or how to, like you were talking about, really lean on the transferable skills that you have. And then, this other piece that we're talking about, really take the time to know you, really understand what are your skills, what are your strengths, what are your blind spots that you will ultimately want to figure out how to answer. Tell me a time where something you thought was going to go great didn't go great. Like you're going to need very strategic responses to those questions, right? So what would you say, as we're kind of wrapping this up, what would you say are some other kind of final words or final pieces of advice or encouragement for some of these folks who are looking for their next role?
I'd say 100% practice that resilience, and the lack of fear will bring you farther than where you expect. Take on that short-term position. Take on something that maybe you're not making as much right now, but you have seen by researching the company there is growth. Move out of your city. Do something outside of your comfort zone. Maybe even just you want a promotion internally and you're like, do I want to take on this extra work? Do it, because at the end of the day, it's up to you to create those boundaries when you're kind of like, well, I don't want to do this anymore. But then if you do want to do it, and you can present yourself in the future, whether it's interviews or internally, that, hey, I wasn't only given this at hand, but I did more. And that says a lot to a company.
When you are when people are researching companies, what are some of the factors or indicators of this company is growing, this company is doing well?
So generically speaking, a lot of people will know you can look it up on Glassdoor and see reviews. You want to make sure these are actually matching with their client reviews. So sometimes people can say that Glassdoor can be kind of rigged a little bit. But if you go and you see amazing Glassdoor reviews, but then you go to Google to see their actual client and customer reviews and it's not matching, even if the employees are happy, if you're having clients that are miserable and at some point someone, whether it's yourself or an extension of you, has to deal with those people, that could be troubling. So I'd look there to match that. And my other piece of advice is go on LinkedIn, go on Facebook, go on X, one of these platforms, type in the company name. Are you seeing that hiring managers are excited to post and repost? Do you see they're a bit dry? Do you see all of the work about the promotion is just from this one HR rep and one recruiter where everyone else is, radio silent? What are you seeing around conversations between them and clients online on those spaces as well? Making sure things match across the way, and you'll be able to get, a gut feeling like, well, this isn't matching up. And if all looks good, then, move forward. But if something you're questioning it, then I'd probably advise that you move on to the next company that you're interested in.
That is brilliant. I never thought to use Google reviews, like to see what the customers are saying for, as I'm looking up potential employers. Never thought to do that, but it makes so much sense. Okay, last question for you, Jasmin. It's been so awesome having you. What's next for you? We've talked a lot about your career history, but where's Jasmin heading next? And also, where can our listeners find you and keep in touch with you?
Yeah. So currently I'm an HR business partner and my contract is wrapping up. Our contract ended a few months back. And when I was laying off and supporting my employees, one of my employees just said, Jasmin, thank you so much for this transition advice. I never thought of that, asking them during the interview question what you think I should say. Overall, I had an employee basically say, you're really great at giving interview advice and you're really great at recruitment and just career trajectory things when conversating with us during the layoff. You would be really great at this. And it went back to in high school when I wanted to be a teacher and getting the kudos from other people. And this was kind of like the final straw where I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to start a type of advice column on Instagram. So about a few months back, I started HR Sweet Spot, spelt like Microsoft Suite. But I just thought, why not do this? See where it picks up. If my, 25 to 35-year-old experienced employee, 25 to 30 years of experienced employee, sees something in me and other people have, including friends, why don't I share that wealth of advice? So I'm excited to start this journey with HR Sweet Spot, see where it goes, and get people to where they deserve to be professionally. Because, like I said, it all comes down to is that one person that sparks you, that friend's parent that motivates you, that you can go further. Summer, maybe your podcast and one of the episodes will spark someone to push themselves a little bit further. So I'm just hoping that my platform can give the resources on how to do that. And so I'll be dropping a free resume guide beginning of November. And I think maybe in the future we can do something a little bit more fancy, like courses.
Very helpful. I'm looking forward to the resume guide, and I know that you'll be able to do so many wonderful things. We'll stay connected. Listeners, give Jasmin some love. Take a look at HR Sweet Spot. You won't regret it. And Jasmin, thank you so much again. I can't thank you enough for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure. You've been listening to Badasses in Tech. This original content is brought to you by Growth Stack Media. If you're eager to take your brand or business to the next level through podcast creation, video production, or public relations support, we've got you covered. Visit growthstackmedia.com today to book a free consultation, or feel free to reach out through our contact details listed in the show description. That's all for today, but stay tuned for more exciting episodes on the horizon. Until then, I'm Summer Mitchell, and this is Badasses in Tech.